All right, welcome to the Four Pillars training. I'm really excited to bring this training to you because this is the foundation of every contracting business. It doesn't matter whether you're just starting out, whether you're scaling to seven figures, or whether you're moving into multiple seven figures or eight figures. Regardless, you're going to need to pay attention to these four pillars. The better you get at optimizing these four pillars, the bigger your business will grow, and ultimately the more freedom you'll have to live that lifestyle that you want to live. So without further further delay, let's get into the four pillar training. Again, there's four areas of focus, and really what you want to do periodically, my recommendation is you do this at least once a quarter, but periodically you want to review these four areas and kind of see where it is that you're at, right? Ask yourself if you're making progress. Ask yourself if you're making the right progress. Ask yourself if you're doing the right thing, right? Because the key is to implement solutions quickly. That's what matters the most. It's not whether you know what to do or not. What matters is that you implement the solutions quickly. Now, it doesn't mean that every solution is going to be the right solution. So you have to be willing to test, to adjust, and then repeat. Again, implement, test, adjust, repeat. Implement, test, adjust, repeat. And when you get more comfortable with this process, it will allow you to make the decisions that you need to make more quickly and make the adjustments that you need to make more efficiently to ultimately get where it is that you want to go. So what is the first pillar then of our four pillar framework? Well, the first pillar that we talk about is time. Now, here's the thing about time. Time is a limited resource. I don't care how much more of it you want. I don't care how much money you have. You can't buy it. You can't slow it down. You can't stop it. You can't rewind in it, right? So if you can't do that with time, it is a limited resource, and it is something that we have to pay attention to. Think about it right now inside of your business. How much time are you spending doing things that you should not be doing? And why are you still doing that, right? So what you have to do first is what we call a time audit. A time audit to determine, are you the person on the left doing everything with your time, or are you the person on the right, very focused with your time? The better we become at understanding our time, the better we know what we should and should not be doing. So I call this the 4Ds, right? As you're going through your time audit, which if you're asking me, I would say write down everything that you do on a daily and weekly basis. So you have that all on one sheet of paper, then conduct the audit. And in each task is going to fall into one of four categories. The first one is do. These are things, at least in the current capacity that you're at as the owner of your business, you should be doing. Okay. Again, depends on if you're startup mode, growth, or scale, but based off where you're at, you should be doing this right now. The next thing is delegate. This is something that needs to get done, but it shouldn't be you doing it. And you could delegate it to an employee. You could sub the workout. You could have a virtual assistant, right? There's any of a number of options that you have available, but you need to delegate it somewhere else. The third thing is defer. This is something important that needs to get done, but not right now. Okay, so you keep it on the list, but it's not something you're dealing with right now. And the last thing is destroy. This is something that you should not even be doing at all. So quit wasting your time. Now, once you've segmented those things and you're only focused on the do tasks, now you need to order that list, right? What is the first thing that you need to get rid of that you're doing right now that you should not be doing? Okay. And we start to figure out what needs to be done with that. Is it that I need to make, $10,000 more a month in order to hire somebody for that role? Is it that I need to filter through and vet potential hires for an office assistant? Is it that I need to filter through and vet subs so that they can take over some of these responsibilities? Whatever it is, you need to say, this is what needs to happen first and how I'm going to get it done. And the third piece of that is, what's the timeline? When is this going to get done by? Now, after we're done with time, we look at the next pillar inside of the four pillars, and that is team. Some of you are the person on the left here, and you totally enjoy it. The center of the universe, right? I'm making phone calls. I'm driving out to job sites, and I'm estimating, and I'm bidding, and I'm following up with phone calls and with emails. Then I'm driving back out to the job site, and I'm swinging the hammer. And then I'm driving back to my office, and it's 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock at night, and I'm putting together invoices and bills, and then I'm following up the next day and doing the same thing over and over and over again, right? Feels good, doesn't it? Feels good to be wanted. But really what you're doing is you're driving yourself into the ground. So what we want to do is become the person on the right. The person on the right who has an organizational structure that allows them to focus on what they should be focused on, right? So the key to growth is a team. Let me repeat that. Key to growth is a team. It's not grinding all day long and all night long. It is a team. Now, how do we know when to let go of a task? I like to use this thing called the 70% rule. When you find somebody that can do it 70% as good as you, hire them to do that and let them do it, right? Now you're like, wait a minute. If I can do it 100%, they do it 70, that's not equal. No, it's not. But when you hire 2 people, they can now do it 140 versus your 100. See where I'm going with this? It is duplicatable and scalable. You are not, okay? So the first thing that we have to look at is the right people in the right seat. In other words, we have to figure out what people are we looking for based off of where we're at in our business. If we're in startup mode, if we're in growth mode, if we're in scale mode, who do we need to hire, right? Now, remember, I mentioned this earlier, hire slow and fire fast. You need to build a team around you that's capable of executing the mission that you have in front of them. Otherwise, why do you have them there, okay? Now, the way to do this is very simple. On a piece of paper, draw out your current organizational chart. It could just be you. It could just be you and your cousin Bob. It could be you, your cousin Bob, and your sister-in-law, right? It doesn't matter what it is. Draw it out where it is right now. Draw out where you want to be in 90 days, and then draw out where you want to be in a year, okay? Now, when you go back to 90 days and back to a year, you say, can I afford it? Right? Because there's no sense in bringing anyone in if you can't afford it. So what's this person going to cost me and can I afford it? And as you start to do this, you realize that you're able to hire the right person in the right seat at the right time. Okay? Everybody needs an assistant. Everybody needs a project manager or two. Everybody needs a salesperson. But can you afford it? Okay, that's the key. The next thing we look at is identifying the right person for the job. Now, you could hire based off of resumes. You could hire based off of, hey, I just need a warm body. I get it. But there's a better way to hire. And this is looking at who the person is at their core, right? We call this behavior profiling. Now, we use a specific program called Predictive Index. If you'd like more information, I can give you more information on it. But we like to run people through the Predictive Index, and it tells us who they are at their core. In other words, a natural salesperson is going to want to do sales, not going to want to sit in an office behind a desk crunching numbers. That's not their thing, okay? So how do we figure out if that's the right person? We do some behavior profiling. Now, inside of our hiring process, we have 4 different areas that we focus on. The first one is what we call our job framework, right? We're identifying the person for the job before they ever apply. What skills and behaviors do they already have? What do they like to do and not like to do? What qualifications and trainings and experience do they have? So that when the people start to appear at our doorstep, we can start to filter them, okay? The next thing we look at is our ideal candidate description, okay? Based off of what it is that we want them to do, now we're saying, okay, these are the type of people that we want. If you're looking for a project manager, you may want somebody who has 2 years or 4 years or 6 years experience, right? But you're determining what that looks like and the minimum qualifications that you have for your ideal candidate, okay? The next thing we look at is our vetting process. You should be vetting in your hiring process. I don't care what you do as a tradesperson or as a contractor. You need to have a vetting process, okay? How are you screening your candidates, okay? Now, you can do this through behavior profiling, sure. You can also do this through a series of questions. You know, if you're hiring for a project manager position, for example, you can ask questions like, hey, tell me a time when you ran a job site. Tell me a time when your job site was behind schedule. What did you do to get it back on schedule? Tell me a time when your project was over budget. What did you do to bring it back onto budget, right? So it's not just them telling you their experience. They're actually telling you what it is that they've done in these certain situations, which will help you determine if they're the right person for the job. The last thing that we look at is the offer, right? The offer itself. What is it that we're offering this person? Are we offering them hourly? Are we offering them per job? Are we offering them a salary? What does it look like inside of that? On top of that, what about performance, right? Because you're not just hiring a person for a role, you're actually looking at performance as well. So what's their bonuses? Are there any escalator clauses? Like, hey, for every job that you finish on time and on budget, there's an extra $500 for you. type thing, okay? Sometimes, depending on the size of your business, you may offer some type of benefits package, okay? This could be something with paid time off. It could be with health or life insurance or vision or dental, right? You could offer a package that goes along with the salary. So maybe not the salary being as high as they would like it to be, but because it comes with a special compensation package, it makes it more attractive or more desirable. But ultimately, you're the one that's going to need to come up with this, all right? Now, once we've hired the right person to take over those roles and responsibilities that we shouldn't be doing anymore, now we're looking at training, okay? And inside of training, there's a couple different things that we're looking at. The first one is onboarding. The second one is training themselves, right? And the third is holding them accountable. Now, what is training? Training in and of itself is teaching a person to do the thing that we want them to do the way that we want them to do it, right? And we have to standardize this. Just like your mission will never change, your values will never change, your vision will never change. The way that you want a certain role done shouldn't change either, right? So you think about office work, for example. Are they logging on and logging off? Are they doing it through time cards? Are they doing it through an app? Are they doing it through their computer, right? What if there's an emergency? How do they call in sick? Are there any special documents or forms that they need to have access to? Where are those? Do they have a supervisor? What is the relationship with the supervisor? They need to meet with them every day, every week. What does that look like? Okay, you start to standardize the onboarding process. If there's any forms they need to fill out, so on and so forth. Why? Because odds are, if you're going to be in business for a while, you're going to continually be hiring. Okay, so you need to standardize that process. Next thing we look at is the optimization phase, right? We look at phases of training. What we're doing is we're taking somebody who may or may not have the skills or experience that we want and may or may not know exactly how we want them to do it. And we're showing them, what do we want you to do? How do we want you to do it? Swinging a hammer is one thing, okay? Everybody can swing a hammer, but how do you want them to do the job? So this could be checklists, okay? Now, when I was a police officer, we used a field training process. And inside of that process, we had 4 phases. And these 4 phases were designed to make sure that we understood how to do the job the right way. And then we're able and capable of doing it on our own, okay? So phase 1 was very simple. Watch me do it. In other words, we were with a training officer and we watched him take calls for service, do every aspect of the job that needed to get done. So this could be, again, if you hire somebody to be an installer, a rain gutter installer, okay, they need to see every aspect of the job and see you do it and how you want to do it. Now, you could shortcut this a little bit by creating a video training series, absolutely, but you don't necessarily need that, okay? You also eventually are going to want written procedures and a how-to manual, something that they can reference if they forget something, if they're not sure about something, right? Instead of having to pull you away from doing what you're doing. Now, how do we make sure that they understand at least how to do the job? Well, you have them sign off before they move to the next phase, right? It allows you to know very quickly if they understand what they should be doing or not. Now, phase number 2 is do it with me. So phase 1, you watch me do it. Phase 2, you're going to do it with me. We're going to work together through this process. You're going to show me that you're understanding and grasping the knowledge. You should have questions, but you should also make progress. You should be learning what's going on here, right? Should be learning how to install gutters. Should be having questions about the size here or the bend here, or where is it that we screw in here, so on and so forth, okay? Same thing though, if I get that you are understanding the job itself, then I'll sign you off to go to the 3rd phase. Again, if they can't figure out how to do it with me, probably not the right person for the job. 3rd phase now becomes you do it, okay? I'm going to watch you do it, or you're going to do it and I'm going to come back and critique your work after you're done, okay? But you have to be fearless in your critique. It's not that you're being mean to them. You're making sure that they're doing it to your standard. You have to be firm but fair. There's an acceptable level and there's perfection. Obviously, these guys are not going to be perfect, but we want them to be at the acceptable level. And same thing, if they can't do it on their own, you need to go back to a phase of training, doing it with them, or after a while, you determine that, hey, they're not the right person for the job. And so you move on, okay? You have to then understand that you are responsible for training your people on what you want them to do and how you want them to do it. The 3rd piece of training then is holding your team accountable, right? You're measuring certain things. You're measuring efficiency. You're measuring quality, you're measuring speed. But how are you measuring it? Are you measuring it in number of board feet per hour, or tiles laid per hour, or how long it takes them to re-roof a house? Whatever it is, you need to understand how you're going to measure them. They need to know how they're being measured so that they can perform to the expectation that you have for them. That leads us to the last phase. The last phase is trajectory. Inside of trajectory, we're answering a few different questions, right? Who is it that we're selling to? What are we selling them? At what price? In what positioning? And how do we make sure that it's scalable? Okay. So the first thing, who? Who are we selling to, right? We call this the ITA, the ideal target audience. Who's a perfect person for us? Is it a family with 2 kids making at least $250,000 a year, living in the North End, that is looking for an additional dwelling unit? Is that it, right? How do we ask questions to make sure that these people fall within that category? The next thing is, what are we selling them? Okay, are we just selling them a roof? Are we selling them a remodel? What is it that we're selling? And we need to understand very clearly what that looks like. The third piece is the positioning. How are we differentiating ourselves from everybody else? Okay, now price is different, but if we're looking at positioning, we're looking at how is it that we're different from other people? What do we specialize in? How do we segment based off of everyone else? What do we include inside of what we do, right? So we sometimes call this the offer. If you're doing gutters, you could include 12 months of free care, right? Are all gutter companies offering that? No, but you are. It makes you different, okay? Going back a step, again, to price. What is that we're looking at in price? Are we competitive with the market? Does it include any type of a package? Is there any type of warranty that's included in this? How are we making sure that the price makes sense based off of what it is that we're delivering? And the last piece, again, we're setting all this up in a way that can scale. If it's not efficient, it cannot scale. You cannot scale inefficiencies, right? So what is duplicatable? And we looked at attraction, conversion, and delivery, which you'll learn about when we talk about the different phases of a construction company, a contracting company. But ultimately, what we're looking at is our marketing process duplicatable and scalable? Is our sales process duplicatable and scalable? Is our delivery process duplicatable and scalable? If you can answer yes to all three, then you have something that you can accelerate into multiple 7 or even 8 figures. So that is our 4-phase training. Again, what is it that we look at inside of our 4 pillars? The first thing is time, T-I-M-E, the one thing that you cannot buy. What should we be doing and should we not be doing? The next one, team. How do we build a team that can take over those tasks that we should not be doing? 3, training. How do we train that team on what we expect them to do and how we expect them to do it? And the last piece, trajectory. How is it that we now pour gasoline on the fire? How do we say that we're talking to the right people about the right product at the right price, in the right positioning, in a way that can scale? All right. Hope you guys enjoyed the 4-pillar training. If you have any questions, reach out. We'll have something down below for you to review as part of this training. But now it's time for you guys to get after it. 3, 2, 1. Off you go.